Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how you can hire the best personal injury attorney based on what you need. First of all, let me just preface this by saying I'm so sorry that you're injured. I don't wish being hurt on anyone. So my heart goes out to you just to know that you're injured, and certainly even more so that people aren't cooperating to help make you whole. I'm sure there's nothing more frustrating than dealing with that, as I have actually personally dealt with doctors and insurance companies that do not have your best interest at heart. So my sincere thoughts and feelings and hope for your recovery. Whoever watches this video, I wish that on anyone. So if you're new here, my name is Taylor Darcy from Think Legal, where I help people and businesses thrive. I go live Monday through Friday, except for an occasional, holidays and like the last 2 days, where I needed a couple of days off. I just needed to do some other work that needed to happen, and I just was not able to go live. But I rescheduled those lives, so please make sure to tune in. They are scheduled for next week, starting next week, and then into the following week. And I'll be scheduling more lives. The goal is to help educate and help you with legal stuff, right? Stuff that doesn't have to be complicated. So please make sure to tune in, get your questions answered. If you can't, leave them in the comments below. I totally understand that. And I'll do my best to answer them as soon as I can. I can't always answer them right away. So patience on your part would be great. And I hope you're having a great day. It is Friday when this video is filmed, so yay, happy Friday, thankfully. Looking forward to the weekend. So let's get this started, shall we? All right. So, again, my sincere heart hurts on your behalf for the fact that you have been injured and due to somebody else's either carelessness or mistake. Either way, you're hurt and you need to be compensated for your injuries. First and foremost, the number one way to get the best personal injury attorney possible is asking your family and friends. People that have had interactions. If someone has had a particular injury that's similar to yours, that's a good source because they're going to have how they're going to treat your case is going to be relatively close to how your friend or family member was treated. And this is very important because there are attorneys out there that will not necessarily pursue your case as fast as others. And it's sometimes it's a deficiency in their systems. Sometimes it's a deficiency in their caseload. Sometimes it's they have too many cases. There's a lot of reasons why it happened. And I'm not excusing those reasons. I'm not saying that that's acceptable. I'm simply telling you that it's not as simple as this because, and here's the key, most personal injury attorneys, almost all personal injury attorneys that I'm aware of, take matters on contingency. Which if you're not familiar with what contingency is that you only pay the attorney if they win. That's number one. Or if you discharge them for another attorney, they might have a lien on the settlement. So they might do some work and are entitled to that compensation. And then it's the way contingency works is that percentage depends on the agreement. So every attorney is going to be different. It could be based on prior to the costs or after the costs. So it really depends on the agreement. And this is something that you're going to want to discuss with that potential attorney is how is their fee calculated? Is it on the net after costs or is it on the gross? And again, every state is different and every attorney is different. So make sure you're paying attention to those details. Make sure you're reading your contract. I cannot emphasize that one enough. I get people that don't read my contract, and then when it explicitly says something that it's like it was in the contract, I didn't hide it. I didn't do anything. And so it's very important that you review your contracts. So number one way, asking friends and family members. They may not be able to help you, but it's a good place to start. They're going to be the highest quality thing. If you're watching this video, it's important that you recognize quality sometimes is based on where you're looking, not so much who you're looking for. Another great way to make sure that you're getting good representation is asking about those fees. How will they be charged? When will they be charged? Are they responsible for the costs during litigation and therefore won't have to worry about paying those costs after litigation? How will it work? Okay, so you want to make sure you're discussing these things up front. Will the attorney be responsible for the fees and then that gets reimbursed at the end? Again, every attorney is going to be different, so make sure that you're talking to them about that. The next thing, and this is, we live in a digital world. Google is both your friend and not your friend all at the same time, but looking online, Googling best personal injury attorney near me is a good place to start. Don't end there. Don't look at it and say, oh, well, they must be the best because they say they're the best. Well, best is a relative thing. What one attorney may be best for, another attorney may not be. And so your injury, who you are, needs to be considered in those factors. So don't think that it's just because it says best that they are best, because they might not be. So you're going to want to research them online. Most state bars have a website where you can go and review an attorney's profile on the state bar, and that will give you a good indication if they've had some issues in the past. Is that the end-all be-all of everything? No, you shouldn't rely on that as an absolute. That should be a factor in deciding whether this is a good fit for you as a potential client, right? So then the next, you're going to want to review any type of reviews that they may have. You're going to want to check out their reviews. And don't put as much stock in reviews, unfortunately, don't make that mistake, I should say, is it's okay to consider reviews, but the problem is that everyone's experience is different. It's kind of like if someone has one bad review out of 1,000 glowing reviews, I'm just using that as for instance, that's a very different story than if they have one review and it's a bad review, right? But you don't know why that person is actually leaving that review. They might be leaving it with the best of intentions, and unfortunately, they might be leaving it with the worst. Because unfortunately, some people's perceptions of good and bad attorneys aren't accurate, and the media certainly does not help. So just take even bad reviews with a grain of salt, and take good reviews with a grain of salt, right? Because if there's no perfect relationship, there's no perfect attorney-client relationship. Sometimes things happen, and it's neither party's fault. It's just that they didn't work well together. And another attorney might have had a better outcome. Don't know. Sometimes it's the client that may have unreasonable demands and expectations. Sometimes it's the attorney that doesn't do their job the way that they should be doing it. So again, take all of these things in context, get a picture, right? Like, you wouldn't just take a look at one picture and one spot of a picture and say, oh, this is a good picture, this is a bad picture. No, you're going to take a step back. You're going to look at the picture, the entirety of the picture, and you go, okay, here is all of the details that I need to know about this beautiful picture. And when you're thinking about an attorney, that's part of the process, is getting a picture of how good this attorney is and whether that attorney is best for you, right? We can all agree that we aren't all the same. And so some of us like rock, some of us like pop, some of us like art, some of us like sculptures. There's so much diversity in who you are. Not every attorney is going to be a good fit for you. And so you want to get the best fit possible. And that means that they might not have been a good fit for somebody else, right? But they'd be a good fit for you. It's a lot like a relationship, right? Not everybody's going to be everybody, right? You're not going to date everybody. So that's part of this relationship that you're beginning. Okay, it's very much like that. All right. This kind of goes to once you feel like you've got a good handle on who they are. So you see that picture, you're looking at it and you're going, yeah, that's someone I'd like to do. Listen to your instinct, right? Don't let necessarily things that you've seen absolutely detract you if it's somebody that's gotten good reviews and referrals from somebody else. But listen to your instinct. If you're uncomfortable about something that someone does, especially attorney world, then that's probably not a good fit for you, because you're going to have those misgivings throughout the representation, and it can hurt the communication between the client and yourself. So keep these thoughts in mind, that you want to listen to yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with you, and you should be the one that's happy about it. All right, next. Are they handling your case personally? Sometimes this matters more than others. And what do I mean by personally? Most attorneys have a paralegal and a legal assistant. They might have a partner. There's lots of different scenarios in this. And if it's a type of firm that handles it, sometimes the head of the firm is managing the cases while the associates and other partners are doing the work. So it really depends on the firm. You can't look at and say that the attorney absolutely positively has to handle personally your case, because that could be the least effective way of doing it. So look for efficiencies, not necessarily dogma. Okay. The next thing is, do they specialize? I have colleagues that all they do is work with traumatic brain injuries. And so that's going to be someone that, especially if there's a traumatic brain injury, if you're hurt or your loved one is hurt, that's going to be somebody that is a good or potentially a good fit for you, right? Because they know the ins and outs better than someone who doesn't. But if it's a run-of-the-mill car accident, if you will, or motorcycle accident, there's no brain injury, right? If it's not traumatic brain injury, but you have other injuries, then it may be important. Then who you get as far as a specialty isn't as important. So it largely depends on what you're looking for and who they are. So keep those thoughts in mind. If they don't specialize, that's perfectly fine. Maybe they are a better generalist than they are a specialist. And depending on the case, that's perfectly acceptable. Don't feel like that you have to have a specialist in everything that you do, because that's just not necessary. But it's a good start, right? Like, it's a good way to look at things. So those are the things that you want to pay attention to. How to get that best personal injury attorney will largely depend on you and the injury and the type of injury that you have. So don't feel like that, again, what may have worked for one person may not work for another. So don't feel like you have to do something a certain way. These are just things that you want to pay attention to while you're doing this, or your loved one. If you're someone that's supporting someone that's been injured, right? Those people deserve medals for the work that they do, because of the people that can't do the work for themselves. So whoever is watching, just keep those types of thoughts in mind. Now, these are some things that you want to avoid. Okay, so we found out, we talked about getting the best personal injury attorney. Now we're going to talk about things that you want to steer clear of, things that are red flags, and things that, while not absolute deal breakers, if they do them, well, one of them is, if they do them, I wouldn't pay attention. I wouldn't go there. It would just save yourself the trouble and avoid them. Number one is having poor client reviews, especially if they're in large quantity. One or two, I'm not saying that's okay, but it could have just been a bad fit. So don't think one or two is a thing. But if out of 30 reviews, or 40 or 50 reviews, 40 or 50 of them are negative or not great, that would be someone I would not be interested in, that would be a good fit for you, for anybody. And I would say just walk away, right? It's unlikely that many people are completely wrong. It's possible, absolutely, because unfortunately sometimes when people have a bad experience, they're more likely to vocalize it than people that have a good experience. So that's why coming back to trusting your gut is so important. But just take those things, take them with a grain of salt. ratemyprofessor.com in school is a real thing, right? And so unfortunately, there's reviews of bad professors out there. Same thing with businesses. Sometimes students and or people get something that didn't go their way, and so they'll leave a negative review. So take it with a grain of salt, but factor that into your decision. If an attorney is appearing to guess or is unsure of how to handle the case, that would be a decent sized red flag. It doesn't mean that they're a bad red. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't hire them. It may mean that your unique situation is outside of 90% of cases, and so they need to do more research to know what to do for it. So no attorney is going to have 100% of the answers 100% of the time. Don't set yourself up for unrealistic expectations. Okay, leave that opportunity for people to be successful. If there might be that uncertainty, but it's not because they're uncertain about how to proceed. It's they're uncertain about your particular instance. So keep these thoughts in mind, right? I don't like hedging, but everybody's mileage is different, right? Like they can say, you know, how you drive is as important as where you drive, right? So if in this instance, who you're talking to can make a big difference. Okay. This is probably one of the bigger red flags, and these last two are the ones that I would completely avoid if they don't have, or if they do. Number one is if they overpromise or they tell you that something is going to happen quicker than it is. Litigation is not fast. I cannot emphasize that enough. Unlike the movies where they file a complaint one day and then they go to trial the next day or the next week or the next month or whatever, that doesn't happen. It can be anywhere between a week or two before a response, and then 30 days from then, and then another 6 weeks from there, and another 4 months from there. And it can turn into a couple of years, okay? It can be 5 or 6 years. It can be. I'm not saying it will be. This is very important. Just because it can be faster, but anybody that promises it, that's what you want to stay away from. The general goal is to under-promise and over-deliver, because inevitably, the more you promise something will happen, the more likely that it is that it won't happen. Like, I've had cases where that's true. Like, not that I promised anything, but where you think, okay, this looks like a pretty straightforward case. Okay, maybe. And then it turns out to not be. Because there's facts that aren't known at the time, and so on and so forth. So don't feel like that. But if they're over-promising it, if they're telling you that they can solve this case, or I'll get you $2 million in damages. No, run away. Like, honestly, run away. Like, those are not people. Because here's the thing. They don't know that. They're promising, and you're just going to be disappointed later, like almost without fail. Even if it's the similar case to when they already got that type of damages on, it could be a different insurance company. It could be a different it could be a different everything. So everything, there's too many factors to play into what's a good settlement and what's not. And so if they're over-promising, that's a bad thing. That's a very, very bad thing. The next thing, and this one is one of my more cringe ones, if they don't have their fee agreement in writing, okay? It's unadvisable, even under the best of circumstances, and in some states it's actually illegal for you to, not illegal, it's against the rules of professional conduct to not have a fee agreement in writing. So it depends on the state, so it's very important that each state you take a look at and know that the state's going to change what is allowed and what's not allowed. However, I don't care what's allowed by the rules of professional conduct, in the respect that you should always look to protect yourself. I obviously care about the rules of professional conduct, okay? But I mean, as far as like, you should have stuff in writing all the time. And that's coming from the business side of things. Like, the more in writing something is, the better it is for the both parties, for every party involved. You should be protecting yourself with contracts, no matter if it's personal injury or your personal business. Contracts are the way to go. So when I say that, I mean, I'm looking at it from here's the model rules of professional conduct, which is a baseline. I'm talking about protecting yourself up here, right? Which is a better position to put yourself in. So it's very important that you get your fee agreement in writing, ever, like always, because number one, it's something to refer to. Number two, if there's a conflict, there will be sections there that outline remedies and how things are paid. And it's kind of like the beginning of your roadmap to recovery, right? Like, you want to be sure about how things are working in that respect. So that's it. Those are the ways, and that's how you can get the best personal injury attorney possible. And if you've gotten value out of this video, don't forget to hit subscribe and like, and know that I go live Monday through Friday at 11, except for holidays and an occasional day off. Stop in and get your questions answered, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you so much. Bye. Bell icon. Bing. Bye.